Games, board games. I might be talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and today I am talking about rules. These are the things that should not be borne by fools. Fools should not write the rules. That's what I'm saying because they are an important thing when you get playing, and the rules are the most important thing of the game. The rules are almost part of the name. I mean, they're not actually part of the name, but basically, it's good evening, good morning, good whatever it is, wherever you are, 10 a.m.-ish UK time for Betty Beats and Board Game Blether. And all I'm talking about today is that the most important thing in a board game is the rules. The important thing is that the rules are absorbed, that they are able to be understood. Because if you're playing by different rules, then it is a different game. I mean, consider a deck of playing cards, whether you play poker with bicycle playing cards or Waddington's playing cards or some, random playing card deck that has novelty things on it. Maybe it's got the historical buildings of Avignon, I don't know. But whatever the deck of playing cards are, if you were to go and play Texas Hold'em poker, and of course you need chips and stuff as well, but assuming that you were playing by the same rules, it would be the same game. Fundamentally, it would be more similar in experience. But then if you were to play, let's say, using those playing cards to play bridge, that's obviously a completely different game. And that's kind of a ridiculous example because those two games are so different. But genuinely, you can get one rule difference and it will impact the entire effect, the entire emotional impact of everything. And that's all I want to say. But first of all, let me talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. What have I been up to? So firstly, actually let me close that and get that scrolling again. So yesterday I went to Playtest UK. As always, Friday is the day for me to be playtesting in London near Waterloo. I posted a whole bunch of stuff which was brilliant. I need to post some more stuff. But then we started off playing this game by Ellie Dix, which is a strategic game about, it's kind of worker placement, but not quite. There's a bit of extra stuff to it, although maybe that extra stuff, well, we discussed whether it should be part of the game or not. And then there's different boards, you're gathering threads, you're embroidering things, and then you've got special abilities, and then you've got a chance to get threads with more randomness, or you've got a chance to get threads with less randomness, or you've got a chance to get the commissions, which actually give you points when they're combined with your bargellos, which are the patterns that you're making. And this, for me, was a super satisfying game to play. Having that combination of, okay, I've got these things, I need to get these things for the points, and then, boom, I managed to pay off. It's got that kind of ticket to ride thing that you really want that thing, and if you manage to get it, hooray! And sometimes, yeah, that sense of satisfaction. So it's also got a really interesting mechanism that I won't go into with the line of cubes here. Alan showed off Furious Frogs. There's Alan. And you're programming the entire game. It's going bloop, 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 6 times. And everyone's programming the entire thing. It's a game all about mind games. It's a game all about thinking, what will that person do when they have the priority? It's a game where you've got a mixture of information that okay, the first player marker, and that gives you a lot of power, is going to move around the board, so you can rely on it when you're in a particular place. But at the same time, there's a lot of chaos because you don't know which cards are not going to be taken, you don't know which ones are going to go, you don't know what other people are going to do. And yeah, sometimes it does come down to a guess. but it's really fun just programming a whole bunch of things and then seeing what happens. And it takes about 5 minutes. We played a whole bunch of slight rules variations, and there's a really nice game here waiting to come out. And of course, there was a little origami frog that won't be in the final game unless there's some sort of special pledge manager. But it was a lot of fun just flipping this over. And check out those furious frogs. They are just so much fun to look at. And I like the general aesthetic, the kind of the frogs, and then the simplicity of all the insects. And there were other games going on. There was a game from David's brain, and there were other people who playtested that I didn't get to photograph. I playtested quite a few games myself. I playtested, this one doesn't have a title yet, but it's a game about estimating numbers and trying to split the vote of whether the real number is higher or lower. That's the game, yeah. It's a game about estimating numbers and trying to split the vote when other people... So the questions are things that no one will know. So the questions might be things like, how many chips were in a regular fries? How many fries were in a regular fries that Bez bought? And people think, okay, was it 73? And then everyone votes, and then it go higher or lower. And it doesn't matter if you're the closest. If everyone else goes lower, but it was actually higher, you don't get a point by being the closest. But you do get a point for splitting the vote. So in that example, no one would get points. It's just, bloop, everyone failed. But if one person had been correct and gone higher, then yeah, that they would have gotten a point for being correct and guessing higher. Everyone else would have, well, the person naming the number would have gotten a point for managing to split vote. Even if you know the correct answer, if the question was, how many episodes of Friends are there? Knowing the answer isn't going to win you the game. It's about thinking what other people would think the answer is, if that makes sense. So it's only about splitting the votes. I did also play a simpler version of a game about counting cats, shapes, and colors that keeps getting trickier. I think that I'm going to develop it to remove all the doubles and add a third color, but not a fourth shape, and we'll see how we get on. Then finally, I played this word game. People make words, and we had some good words. Rewax, plenty, it, and do. With, wait a minute. Sorry about that. Then on the other side of the board, there was nabs, turtled, that's pretty good, and downs. And then finally, on the far end between me and David Brain was ha, orb, certain, which I was quite proud of, and soon, even though the things are arranged to be count, but you can use the cards for either of those letters. So this is a game for exactly 3 players, and each player will be playing out 16 cards, but then you play them to the right and the left. It's got that element heavily inspired by Between Two Cities, and the longest word scores triple, the second longest word scores double, everything else scores single. So here, having a 7-letter and then a 5-letter, that's really good compared to only having a 7 and then a 4, or a 6 and then a 5, which, yeah, you really want to make that longest as long as you can, and then the second longest. But yeah, that's my recent highlights. What have been your recent highlights? Let me know. And now back to the main topic. Brilliant thing, it's a little thing which is brilliant. So rules and them being absorbed into your brain. This is a brilliant thing because games are fundamentally about you do a thing and then a thing happens. Like maybe you say something to someone and it's about what they say back, or maybe you're telling part of a story and then you hear the story and then the story evolves, or maybe you're doing a strategic thing and then other people react and then you win or you lose, or maybe you're just pressing a button and then there's flashing lights and that is the game. Whatever the thing, It's all about that kind of input, output sort of. That's a big part of the game. The frameworks. What's possible? What are you allowed to do? Games are all about agency. You need to know what is possible. In a video game, you know you are allowed to press any of the buttons, but even then, there are some things that presumably are not allowed to press. I mean, there might be an on-off button on the computer. Presumably, that's not part of the game. There might be some buttons to sign out of the game if I'm playing on Steam, or if I'm playing online, maybe there's a button to close the window. That's not part of it, unless the game is doing something to subvert your expectations, of course. But within that scope, you assume, okay, these are the buttons I can press. Then if I press to jump, the computer will navigate to exactly how much I jump. Now, with a board game, you have to control all the things. You are the person who, well, someone at the table has to be the person to regulate the rules, to enforce things, to at some point say, no, that's not allowed, that's too far, or this is allowed, this is what you're allowed to do. And hello, Timmy, thank you for dropping in. And yeah, the brilliant thing is when you are controlling these rules, you are more aware of them. And because you are more aware of what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, that kind of even maximizes your sense of agency, because you're feeling, whoa, I can do all these things. That's so cool. And that all falls apart if people don't understand the things. If I were to play Go, to keep using an example of my favorite game, if I were to play Go and then instead of something being removed when it's completely surrounded externally and internally, I play that it just needs to be surrounded externally, well then that would be a very different game. I posit that it would be a far worse game. If you, because, you know, then everything would get taken off and nothing is ever alive, and there's, yeah, that whole concept falls by the wayside. So you need to understand the rules to make it the game that you think you're playing. If someone was playing Wibble, and then instead of resetting after someone gets their third card and having a permanent obligation, they reset when you get their fourth card and have a permanent obligation. Now, that's what it originally said in the rules, that after your fourth card, well, you get the bonus, you've got 5, everyone else has 3, and then you start again. But that 2 extra cards, when the difference might have been 3 versus 5, that 66% bonus was not necessarily enough to make up for the permanent obligation, which is why I went down to, when you get your third card, everyone else has 2 at most, you're getting your third plus a bonus, so you have double what anyone else has, and then it is enough to have that permanent obligation, to be kind of making life more difficult for yourself as time goes on. And again, if people were to play by the wrong rules, by the old rules, it would be a fine game. I'm still happy with that, but it's not as good. And fundamentally, that changes the game far more than anything else. It has to be, the rules have to go into your mind. It doesn't matter whether the letters, sure, they have to be readable. Sure, if you can't tell that this is an I and an L, sure, if something becomes too hard to read, that's stopping you from being able to engage with it. But fundamentally, it doesn't matter what the typeface is. To a certain extent, that doesn't matter. And so the brilliant thing, the really brilliant thing that I'm saying is, when you know all the rules, and then you're able to not just be wondering about what all the rules are, but really engaging with it, really thinking, yeah, this is what I can do. Now let's try that. Let's see what happens. And you're thinking not just about the rules, but about the ramifications, about the possibilities, and you're excited to do the things. That is the most important thing in a board game. The rules. Not just having the rules available that you can consult, but having the rules in a way that your target audience can absorb them and then be having the experience. Because learning the rules, presumably, again, there are exceptions. Maybe your game is a weird project that's about how difficult it is to read rules and it's deliberately obtuse. That's fine if you want to step outside the box. But fundamentally, most games, learning the rules is not the point. Learning the rules is just a thing you have to do to access the thing. So how do you do that? Well, you need to make sure that the written rules are well written. And hopefully, it's always a compromise. Even my own written rules, I'm not going to say these are perfect, these are brilliant, these are the best thing ever. No, they are not. They are as good as I could do at the time, given the constraints that I have of financial, how much paper I could have, how I couldn't use color and all these things. But the rules are the most important thing. When they are written, you want to make sure that it's clear and that you have examples, that you have, when you're checking something, that it's in the place where it is. Have an overview that explains the game well enough that someone could almost feel like they could start playing if it's a simple enough game. Then really go into the details. Have some, if someone is going to need to know how many of each letter appears, why not have that as a handy reference sheet? If there's something that people might not fully understand, like even if 2% of people don't know it, then have a little illustration. And then on the back, maybe you have some example turns. Go through it in a bit more detail. But there is a limit. Some people might benefit from a video. That's also a brilliant thing that you can do. And again, it's all about the resources that you have. I'm not saying every game should come with this, but I am saying that actually is going to improve the game more than having nicer graphics. Because how do you get someone to know the game? You can do direct teaching at a convention when you're kind of going around pubs or whatever and showing it off to people. But that's not something that can scale massively. So the videos, the rules, doing something like app assisted, like Chronicles of Crime, like Lucky Duck are so good at doing, where the app kind of explains the game as you go through. So it's still a board game, but the app is taking you through. Maybe do something like Root, where you have a video game version of the board game, and then the video game is designed to help teach you, so that then you can, once you've played the video game a few times, you could then sit down in front of the board game and teach someone, even though you've never seen the board game before, like a couple of minutes before. That's really good what Root did. And all of these systems are tying into the key part, which is the most important thing about a game, is that you know what you're allowed to do. And the most important thing about a board game or any game where someone at the table is going to have to adjudicate the rules is that they are adjudicated correctly. So yeah, I hope that this wee rant has been somewhat useful. I hope that it's, if you've got any questions or anything, then please let me know. I always like to say to please comment, ask questions, follow all that stuff. But let me go to where I ask you the question of the day. Question of the day. It's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day. What's my question of the day? Is going to be, when was the last time you got a game's rules wrong? The last time I got a game's rules wrong was via, I think it was Mob Sitters. So I opened a box. I had play tested it ages ago, and then I was trying to read the rules and teach it sort of at the same time. I asked them, okay, give me 5 minutes, let me read through it. It is a very short manual. I'm not saying it's badly done by any means, but just because of the time, it was kind of being stress tested. And I made a major mistake. I thought that we were playing... I misunderstood how a whole bunch of stuff. And then halfway through, it was, after one round, or a round and a half, I said, hey, everyone, I'm sorry, I've got a whole bunch of things completely wrong. Shall we just restart and carry on? And luckily, it was 10 minutes. It wasn't ideal, but everyone knew that this was a game that I'd just gotten at UK Games Expo. And so it was the Monday, last Monday, whenever that was, 6 days ago. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I played again. I'm fairly sure it's correct, but after playing, I will need to read through the rules again. How could that have been improved? I'm not sure. Maybe having, um, yeah, I would have to look through it again. But I am going to say that it's not always the easiest thing for sure. And I do really appreciate those first overviews where it is a case of saying, yeah, I've got a good sense of what's going to happen. I've got a good sense of the game flow. Now I go into the actual details. But yeah, I do get rules wrong sometimes. And it's important because if you get them wrong, you are playing a completely different game. And so if I ever reviewed something and then I found out that the rules were wrong, I would try to correct everything. But that would also be a suggestion that there is some extra complication. Anyway, over to you. What are you up to? You can share what's happening if you want to. So what are you up to? I am personally going to be doing a whole bunch of packing of stuff. I was about to show, yeah, I think I can show this side. So a whole bunch of these envelopes. There is an address on the other side that I'm not going to show, but there's a whole bunch of these envelopes that are going to be filled and going out hopefully this morning. We will see. But that is what I'm up to. And then if I've got time, I'm going to go and see a friend very quickly and just some life admin. I hope that you're well. For now, to recap and wrap up, the most important thing in a game is the rules. The rules enforce the agency. The rules are what makes the game the game. If you play by different rules, you are changing the game. And there are games where the cards have rules on them. For example, in this one, there are 3 cards that you have personally, and those are the things that you have to draw. Bony or skeletal bits, a little beard, and furry legs. And it's also these, even though they're not parts of the core rules of the game, even this little bit of text is a rule in that it says this is what you have to do. And all of these things, the text has to be legible, the rules written have to be clear. You might want to think about a video, you might want to do some special events, and if anyone ever gets something wrong in a review or whatever, then that's an opportunity to re-examine yourself, or if you're ever watching someone play. And so that's why these things have to be tested as much as you can. But then again, especially with the busy bargain bags, I'm aware that there's a limit to how much I do that. And it's all about opportunity and, resources. But yeah, rules, absorbing them, it's important. It's the most important thing, you might say. I am Stuff by Bez. Go to stuffbybez.bigcartalook to buy some of my stuff. I will be retooling the shop by the end of the month. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. I am Stuff by Bez. And if you want to join in my Discord to ask me specific questions, go to stuffbybez.com/Discord. And of course, stuffbybez.com/streams. I am going to be traveling a wee bit, but tomorrow I will probably do an unboxing, and on Monday I will hopefully have a quick chat with Ree and Laurie. I'll probably have Alan Paul on, and on Wednesday, and just a few quick rants on, and also during the smoke. During the smoke, I will just be. I'm not sure I can even chat at 10 a.m. If I'm in the middle of a LARP, I will knock it back by an hour and I will change my schedule. And I apologize about that in advance. Either way, share, spread the word, and lots of love to everyone. Especially a shout out to Jess, who apparently has horse milk in their hair. Is that on purpose? Was the horse milk meant to make your hair nicer? I do not have horse milk in my hair. I understood I understood. Okay, it's good for your hair, apparently. Well, my hair is glossy and neat. Oh, neat. Okay, I get it. Well, congratulations, and I hope you enjoy your hair treatment. So as I say, share, spread the word. Thank you very much, everyone, for popping in. Thank you, Timmy and Jess and everyone else who's watching. Thank you, Patrick Campbell. And for now, the only thing that I have left to say is, of course, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.